can we see the sustainable development within the villages, within the city, what the tribes were having?
I wish in many ways we could have completed it, because we've seen since then tremendous amount of increase in military expenditure, in war, in the outbreaks of war. So Canadians didn't have that understanding. And so by going back, talking about Gandhis within the university, within the ivory tower.
Every breath you are taking,
Yeah.
with the calmness inside, with the peace inside, with the self of love and the compassion inside. And that is the ahimsa I start with.
India has an amazing history. It's just totally blows you away. When you have peace inside, the next level is to give and feel the fulfillment of giving to others. I have a white face, but I definitely have an Indian heart. Fundamental in mental health, when you lose control of something, when you don't feel you can control something, you get very anxious. Nagar Palika representative, when she's in power, she's looking at how many bathrooms in the school in Canada. In Canada. And logo ko betara kyun gandhi pढ़ते हैं यार.
नमस्कार दोस्तों, कभी ऐसा सुना है कोई परदेसी आता है और यहाँ का होके रह जाता है, जो आपकी चीज़ों को आपको ही बताता है, फिर से आपको आपके होने का एहसास कराता है, आपके लिए लड़ता है, आपके लिए झगड़ता है, आपको हर चीज़ वो दिलाने की कोशिश करता है जो आपके हक का है। आज हमारे साथ एक ऐसे ही गेस्ट हैं जिनकी जर्नी यूएन से स्टार्ट हुई और शायद हर देश के ट्राइब्स से गुज़रते हुए एक एक चीज़ के लिए डेवलप करते हुए वो भारत आई, और भारत आके आज उनको 40 साल हो चुके। 40 साल होती तो मेरी उम्र है, सोचिए। तो आज हमारे साथ जो गेस्ट हैं वो है जिल कैर-हैरिस। वेलकम जिल।
Thank you, Himaanshu.
Jill, just I want to know how your journey has been. जो स्पेशली ट्राइब्स हैं, जो अपने कोड में हैं, जो अपने ऑथेंटिसिटी में है ना, उनकी राइट्स, उनकी ज़िंदगी को आपने इतने करीब से देखा है और इतने साल में इतनी जगह पे देखा है।
हिमांशु भाई, मैं आई थिंक 40 साल पहले, बहुत पहले, मैं यूएन यूनाइटेड नेशंस में काम करते हैं, और मैं एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट भी दिया इंडिया में। सो मैं 1 साल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इंडिया भी आए, और मैं कुछ रिफॉरेस्टेशन की प्रोजेक्ट ज्वाइन किया, वेस्टलैंड डेवलपमेंट। और सो मैं तुरंत गाँव भी चले जाते हैं क्योंकि फॉरेस्ट्री है ना, और मैं जल्दी देखते हैं डिफॉरेस्टेशन बहुत बड़ा समस्या है हमारा भारत में। और ये 1 साल के बाद जब मैं कुछ प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीट किया, मैं सोचते मैं बहुत मुझे रहना चाहिए इंडिया, क्योंकि मैं जस्ट कुछ समझाते हैं लोगों के साथ। सो मैं रिज़ाइन किया यूएन में, और एक संस्थान गठन हुआ दिल्ली में। और ये संस्थान, उनका नाम साउथ सॉलिडरिटी। सो ये मतलब मैं सोचते ये डेवलपमेंट प्रैक्टिस, हमारा विकास का काम दिल्ली इंडिया में हम शेयर करते हैं, और डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज, साउथ कंट्रीज थोड़ा संपर्क करते हैं। सो मैं शुरू किया, और ये समझाते हैं दैट हमारा पूरेस्ट ये सबसे गरीबी लोग, हमारा आदिवासी लोग, ट्राइब्स भी है ना। सो जल्दी में शुरू थोड़ा घुस गए विलेजेस, उस टाइम में बिहार, लेकिन अभी आजकल झारखंड और मध्य प्रदेश, अभी छत्तीसगढ़, और कुछ देखते हैं ट्राइबल स्थिति क्या है। और देन हम एक प्रोग्राम बनाते हैं, एक एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम ट्राइबल्स अफ्रीका में, और ट्राइबल्स आदिवासीज और देशों में। सो एक्सचेंज, सो हम थोड़ा समझ आ रहा ये कैसे कैसे लोगों को थोड़ा सहयोग करते हैं आदिवासी लोग। और ये रिफॉरेस्टेशन पहले किया है ना, सो ये बहुत ट्राइबल्स बनवासी है। ट्राइबल कल्चर बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है ना, ये संस्कृति बहुत है। ये ट्राइबल्स कुछ पैसे नहीं है उनका पॉकेट में, लेकिन ये बहुत अमीर है क्योंकि संस्कृति बहुत बड़ा है, बहुत हिस्ट्री है, बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है। ये ट्राइबल्स मेरे देश कनाडा, सो आदिवासी लोग कनाडा में है, लेकिन ये आदिवासी इंडिया में बहुत रिमोट विलेजेस रहते थे उस टाइम में, 40-30 साल पहले। सो ये अलग अलग ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स
से पूरे कट ऑफ थे पहले तो,
बहुत कट ऑफ किया ना। सो ये घूमते घूमते जाते हैं ट्राइबल विलेजेस, बहुत सुंदर अनुभव आया ना। और मैं सोचते उस टाइम में ये ट्राइबल्स है ना, ये गार्डियंस ऑफ द फॉरेस्ट, ये गार्डियंस ऑफ द फॉरेस्ट। ये फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट सोचते ये फॉरेस्ट साफ होने वाला, लेकिन ये जब ट्राइबल्स रहते हैं, फॉरेस्ट फायर्स ने ये सब ठीक धीरे धीरे में बहुत अनुभव आया। में एक संगठन एक्ट परिषद मिलते हैं, एक्ट परिषद ये जल जंगल जमीन के अधिकार लेते हैं, तो ट्राइबल्स कुछ रिसोर्सेज उनके पास है। सो मैं जोड़ सकते ये एक्ट परिषद आंदोलन। और मैं कैनेडियन हूँ, सो मैं जस्ट सहयोगी देते हैं। और धीरे धीरे ये फाउंडर है ना पीवी राजगोपाल, में बार में शादी हुआ उनको। सो ये देन भारतीय लोग
सब इंडियन बहू हैं।
जी मैं इंडियन बहू है। ये गाँवन में ना, ये आदिवासी गाँवन सेल्फ सफिशिएंट है ना, क्योंकि रिमोट विलेजेस ये
उनके इकोनॉमिक से सेल्फ सफिशिएंट है।
एग्जैक्टली, इकोनॉमी सेल्फ सफिशिएंट है। ये बान भी घुस जाते हैं और कुछ जैसे एक सुपरमार्केट ना, उनका फॉरेस्ट, उनका जंगल जैसे एक सुपरमार्केट। तो खाना भी लेके कुछ महुआ, कुछ साल लीफ। आई थिंक द बेस्ट थिंग थोड़ा उनका सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी में एक्सप्लोर किया। और ये एक्ट परिषद है ना, ये एक गांधीयन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, गांधीयन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। और राजगोपाल एक सोशल वर्कर है, बहुत बड़ा गांधीयन सोशल वर्कर है हमारे देश में। सो मैं गांधीवादी, गांधी सिद्धांत थोड़ा पढ़ाते हैं ना।
Nonviolence is a key of
nonviolence is a key aspect of Gandhi's work. एक डॉक्टरल प्रोग्राम गांधी के बारे किया था। I went back and did this PhD in Gandhi in Canada. In Canada. And लोगों को बता रहा क्यों गांधी पढ़ते हैं। And मैं explain किया, मैं बात किया उनको that Gandhi is still alive and well in the villages of India. In my own studies of Gandhi, as I wanted to really understand tribals, people at the grassroots level, how they could be more self-sufficient, self-governing, so that they don't need to depend on communities that tend to exploit them.
Exploit them.
Yeah.
Right.
That they find their own ways of living based on their knowledge, based on their nature-based relationships. And I think Gandhian ideas are very, very helpful because what does Gandhi teach us? It teaches us self-sufficiency, self-governing villages. Gandhi said that in his view, India was 5 lakh villages brought together as a country like India. And so it was important for me to really understand what that meant. Because as a Canadian, we did not have the fortune that Indians have of having a father of the freedom struggle, you know, who was nonviolent, who acted out nonviolence, who was a figure that transformed the idea of becoming liberated from a colonial power and using nonviolence that took 70 years to develop. And Gandhi only came in the last part of it to bring that freedom, in 1947. So Canadians didn't have that understanding. And so by going back, talking about Gandhi's within the university, within the ivory tower in Canada, people began to see that this was a nonviolent, that nonviolent change is possible, and that Gandhi had more than just a political independence in his philosophy. He also gave us understanding of economics, education, and a way of being, because, you know, Gandhi said just before independence, he said, I don't want to see India just politically independent. I'd like to see it economically, socially, and culturally independent. That the minds of our people are liberated from the colonial past. And from slavery, in fact. And those lessons, which I was able to explore through the context of looking at Gandhi, looking at nonviolent education, looking at economy, then I came back and took my own understanding and again went to see how we can bring how can we innovate in 2025. We need not go back to 1925 when at the height of the non-cooperation movement, but some of the deep ideas that Gandhi brought has relevance today, but in a way that fits with the aspirations of the youth today, a technological society, a highly advanced India, an India that's developed hugely economically in the last many years. How do we see Gandhi in that context?
Have you seen any of the similarities of all the tribes in different countries?
Yeah.
Like in the south also,
Sure.
in the Southeast Asia also.
Yes.
If you see all the African countries,
Yes.
if you have seen any of the things which we can learn
Yeah.
as a modern citizen of
Yeah.
this global village
Yeah.
from those tribes,
Yeah.
so what could be those things?
So Himaanshu, we've had we did a huge march from India, Padyatra, in the Gandhian style of a salt satyagraha, where we walked from Delhi to Geneva.
Oh my
Over
God,
1
from
year.
Delhi to Geneva.
Geneva. In 2019, at the 150th anniversary of Gandhi, we decided to take the lessons of Gandhi, the strength of nonviolence outside India. And so we started, and unfortunately the border in Pakistan was just about the time we were going to start was closed. So we had to go through the country, cross into UAE, over to Iran, up through Armenia, to Georgia. And we were going to go to Serbia and then Bosnia, Croatia, Italy, and Switzerland
My
and get to
God.
Geneva. It was 1 year. But 5.5 months into our march, we unfortunately got the COVID pandemic, coronavirus. And people didn't want us to march anymore because they thought we would pass. We were 100 people now walking from many countries. We were an international team walking through their countries, trying to talk about peace, trying to talk about nonviolence, taking the lessons from India to Geneva and the lessons from various countries on the way, 10 countries on the way. And we were stopped. And so we had to, all of the people had to go home, and we waited almost 2 months in Armenia with the hopes that the coronavirus would pass and we could finish our march, because we had done 5 years of preparatory work in each of the countries to get to Geneva. And we wanted youth of the world to know that peace was alive and well, and we can still do these crazy actions and take our ideas from the grassroots to the international level. And so it broke up, and we had to stop the Jai Jagat. And I wish in many ways we could have completed it, because we've seen since then tremendous amount of increase in military expenditure, in war, in the outbreaks of war. And when you have violence of any kind, the people most affected are women, are children, and the poor.
And the poor.
Right? Because they lose the conditions often of their survival for various reasons. And so since the corona, since the onset of global insecurity, I think we've seen in India a unfortunate shift where people want to have more economic growth faster and faster and faster because of the insecurity they're feeling. And in the process, Adivasis, who are some of our most poorest and vulnerable communities, are most affected.
Most of it.
So how to see that is that the resource exploitation, resources are needed for industrial production. It's clear. And we see resource extraction in almost every country of the world. If you go to Congo, if you go to Canada, if you go to Indonesia, if you go to parts of India, you will find rapid, accelerated resource extraction. And everybody is trying to grow their economy as fast as possible. But a lot of it is spurred on by deep insecurity of people feeling that, well, I need money in order to get freedom from the insecurity that I feel.
The Gandhi, the ahimsa means, we say ahimsa, every breath you are taking with the calmness inside, with the peace inside, with the self of love and the compassion inside, and that is the ahimsa I start with. So if you are grounded in the place, if you accept the place where you are, and if you find something to do in the condition where you are, and you see yourself as a resourceful, that is the Gandhiji means, that the ahimsa mean. And this is a very beautiful journey that you have gone through for such a long time, and a small, you have connected the piece of wisdom with this thing, with all your journey. My another question will be, Jill, that can we, in this environment in which we are right now, in the condition we are, in the time zone we are, can we see the sustainable development within the villages, within the city, what the tribes were having? Or this is not going to stop now?
Let me first respond to what you said in terms of internal peace. I think India is so rich in its tradition of nonviolence, whether it's Mahavir and the Jain tradition, whether it's the Buddhist tradition, whether it's from the Hindu Upanishads, Vedic tradition, whether it's from Sufis, and Christian missionaries who have also sought peace. I think, or Christian ideas that are been promoting peace. I think India has an amazing history. It's a place, and consequently, our gurus, the kind of meditation that people are doing in these days, is really helping to bring inner peace to people. However, inner peace has to also be expressed by outer action. And one of the problems that we face is that people who want to act because they feel more inner peace don't have a lot of channels for acting,
Right.
because the system has been created in such a way that it's not easy to find ways to bring peace into the villages or to help different groups. Important thing is for young people in particular to figure out as they become professionals, as they get into jobs, not only how do I gain a better life for my family, but how do I bring people along with me? How do I make the society better? It's a kind of an attitude which I'm seeing in many young people in India today. It's very heartening when you see it. This desire to really make the country a better place. Useful, I think, for young people is to go and see rural areas. We have a program which we've developed for young people called the Go Urban. It's based in Bhopal, and it is a program where young, urban, upper middle class young people go and live in villages for 5, 6, 7 days, experience what it's like in very harsh conditions. I was with one group, we were in Chambal, and the kids suddenly said, we'd like a glass of water, and only to find that women had to walk 5 kilometers to get a bucket of water. And it was very hot summer, and they had to go with their buckets and fill them up and come back. And those kinds of experiences where young people can really feel that they understand and identify with our Adivasis, with people who are marginalized for various reasons. If they can have that identification, then when they come back to a city, they're totally transformed. They really want to do something for the world. They want to lift people and not just themselves. And I've seen that over and over again. So that opportunity to just be able to serve the country, really with service, and feel like, because when you have peace inside, the next level is to give and feel the fulfillment of giving to others.
Giving to us.
This is such a profoundly beautiful thing to be able to experience and to have the opportunity. And I feel so blessed as a Canadian to come to India for all these years and continually feel this fulfillment of being with people who are so loving and giving. And I feel so much a part of the life in India at the deepest level, and feel like I must contribute something. I encourage young people to see the Adivasis, understand their situation, understand nonviolence as a strategy, because there is violent movements in this country. I think they don't succeed. Violence only breeds violence. It's really important for young people to understand they can make a contribution. They can use the tools of nonviolence of Mahatma Gandhi in making a contribution to this country. And this is what we want to promote.
Yeah, it's a kind of hygiene factor in each and everything, in your lifestyle, in your finance, in your everything, everywhere. If you're mindful, you can live a non-violence life. Recently, to today only we are having another podcast. We were talking about the hormones and the mental health. Since we are HLD, we are work for the mental health only. And the way you're talking about the compassion, the love, and how beautiful it is, how itself makes your hormones balance. Nothing else you need to do.
Yeah.
Just being in that zone is good enough for a complete wisdom of life. That brings me another question now. That how you see the past. Since we are Indians and we are living in the same era, we are living in different time zone.
So India has given me a beautiful life, and I have a white face, but I definitely have an Indian heart, because it's been a beautiful life in India. However, I've seen a lot of struggle of poor people, and I've seen a lot of injustice also. So one of the things we've come up with as a way to address that injustice is to look at something that developed from a Gandhian tradition called nonviolent economy. And I'll get to your question indirectly. So nonviolent economy, what is that? How can an economy be nonviolent? It's competitive. It's, whoever can
Survive, they will
survive, and you have to kill your competition, and, it's maximizing profit and all of these things. But actually, what we're beginning to see, because India has had so much community development, and people at the grassroots level have created many strategies for their survival.
Okay.
We're trying to build on local economic models that have grown up naturally. So you have your cooperatives, you have your self-help groups, you have your cluster organizations, where you have many livelihood programs. The government of India is supporting many kinds of livelihood programs through NABARD, through National Livelihood Mission, through many mechanisms. But what we're trying to see is how can we also make villagers more self-governing in that nonviolent economy? How do they take greater control of their life in order to feel dignity, to feel like they have some control? Because Himaanshu, that, and this is very fundamental in mental health, when you lose control of something, when you don't feel you can control something, you get very anxious. You get extremely anxious. And the same thing with a lot of the poor communities. If they don't have control over their resources, if they don't have some control over their economy, then they become cheap labor in the hands of others. They're daily wage earners, And people want to stay with their families on that. They don't want to migrate, but look at the massive migration, internal migration in India just to get work, just to get money to bring home. And so the idea that how do you build a local economy that is more self-sufficient, that will enable people to enjoy their life and build their home life at the same time, build their community life. So we have developed a lot of small things, for instance, not by going only back to traditional practices, but finding how traditional practices merge in a contemporary way to make small social businesses.
Okay.
So how we have
innovations.
How we have huge entrepreneurship programs now.
Okay.
So what we're calling for in more vulnerable backward areas is that entrepreneurship works well in cities where people already have some resources. But when you get to areas that are very
limited with the
meager resources, then what you do is you want to create something with the community. You need to bring together a social group that is able to do collective farming or some kind of way of generating social goods.
Okay.
So you think of organic farming is a social good, and how you get farmers into social organic farming. And they may have different farms, but perhaps they have common facilities, or perhaps they have a common marketing hub, which helps build a social business and enables them to grow. Or handloom sector, we have artisans and handloom in this country, which is second to none in the world. And they're bleeding out of villages because people need money and they're not getting enough money through textile, through handloom, production. Or khadi is, also khadi or handloom. So we're helping to see how can we strengthen the handloom and khadi sectors in a way that people can survive from that. So we're working on identifying different models around the country that are successful, that are doing that, and we're trying to build a network so they can support each other. Wow. And in that way, they can change the market. Because right now, the small social businesses are in a very adverse economy.
So how to bring this tribal product in the current economy?
Exactly.
And how to, this capitalist market will absorb it without advertising.
Exactly. So you've got it. You made the exact point. So suppose many years ago I saw, when I first came and went to those tribal villages, I saw they were making sal leaf plates, women. But women would get on the train with their sal leaf plates and go to market, get a few rupees, and then of course they had to eat something. They had to pay a bribe to the railway because they didn't buy a ticket, and then they went home with little money in their pocket. But today what we're talking about is how do you build some value addition for the producer, and how do you have a direct market without a middleman that enables them to gain more?
How to develop that supply chain also.
Exactly. So we're looking at the supply chain. But that requires us to think about a decentralized supply chain, where we're decentralized. We're not trying to centralize and just scale up. We're trying to encourage maximum number of people to be employed, but somehow we have to see that people are fairly paid, that it's not an exploitative situation. So these are the models that we're looking at. How are people doing it? How can it be increased? And how do we have more direct markets? But there's a further question, which is how do we do it in a way to build social cooperation and peace?
And peace, yes.
How do we build a nonviolent economy? So it's one thing to have decentralization, but in the supply chains, in the value chains, we're also looking not just at money, but are you building social goods? Are you making sure there's maximum employment? Are you making sure you're helping the environment? Because goods is not just money. It's also the conditions in which people are living. If we're extracting everything from the environment for the production of something, how people will suffer in that situation, right? If we are exploiting labor to make something, then people are not happy. Yeah. If women are producing something, but their husbands are drinking so much alcohol and there's so much domestic violence, we're not creating a peaceful economy, a nonviolent economy. So we're going back, Himaanshu, to J.C. Kumarappa, who was Gandhi's economist, who spoke about the economy of permanence. And he gave a lot of ideas back in 1930s as to how to make a nonviolent economy. So we help our young people to be schooled in some of these ideas, but then to make a contemporary application of a social business. How does it work? In such a way that we're not just creating mini small and medium enterprises, but we're creating businesses that are also non-violent. And if you look at it that way, our Adivasi communities will be able to stay in the villages without migrating out, without getting displaced, because they have enough social businesses to survive, and politicians will be less likely wanting to displace them because they're contributing to the economy. That is what we need to see as our picture. It seems very idealistic, but believe me, we're working very, very with a long-term vision in hopes that this will be one way that our Adivasi people will stand up and feeling that they control their lives, that they live in more self-governing villages, and that they're not just being exterminated by large corporate interests, but they are able to hold their ground.
Hold their ground.
Yeah. And to create a balance, because everybody wants a balanced society. They want people to be able to survive and look after the forest and be the guardians of the forest and continue to give good traditions and lots of deep indigenous knowledge. But we also want our minds for some industrial production. You cannot make a computer in a village. So we need also that. So how do we create a balance? I think Chhattisgarh would be a very beautiful ground to experiment with some of these things because it has both Adivasis and a rich tradition. As well as the resources now to really think innovatively. The education is increasing. Kids are coming out with innovative ideas. There's not enough jobs for computer technologists. This opens up the whole field of innovation for young people to think, how can we build a better nonviolent economy?
Few of the things I will just ask you to add for, especially for the Chhattisgarh people.
Yeah.
And this new coming up, since Raipur is a booming city now, is the next booming city, and tribes are not so far from here. Those resources are not so far from here. I have worked with the State Women Commission for the 6 years. I have found that gap analysis. But still, I found the woman in Bastar is more empowered than the woman in Delhi.
Yeah, that's right.
That kind of wisdom they are having, that the kind of freedom they are having, and the kind of participation in the economy.
Yeah.
Everything. And that's make me I was blown away. Okay, though they are 1,000 years back from us, but still they are having that equality.
Yeah.
So just I wanted to have few words on the women empowerment, since it is a Women's Day, and what is there special for the Chhattisgarh?
So we yesterday in near Raipur in Tilda, we had a Women's Day celebration with 60 women from some 17 districts across Chhattisgarh, mostly Adivasi women. And we got together to celebrate. And what I'm finding, some of them were young, some of them were older, mixed generation. What I'm finding is among the young Adivasi women who are getting educated, but still have their foot in a village, some of the most dynamic forces in Chhattisgarh society, without any doubt. If they're given opportunity to come up and play a role, which is our hope in the Women's Commission, in the women's field, if they can come up and play a role, my goodness, things will be much better. I think we need the women's, understanding. Yesterday we also had a ward member and a Nagar Palika leader who came and spoke. And these are, these are women from small towns, and yet they're taking leadership. They're taking leadership. So it's not just Adivasis. They were, other caste groups. And we saw in the recent panchayat elections, so many women got elected.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is women coming up. Will they be given the opportunities? Will they be given the power to make decisions? I think a lot of our problem in conflict is coming from a certain lack of the gentle women, practical women who could give very good political solutions to some of the problems today. Nagar Palika representative, when she's in power, she's looking at how many bathrooms in the school, or does the doctor come to the health centers, or are the hospitals functioning, or the women naturally think of the family and what the family needs are, and I think this combined with the strong women coming up is very, very powerful in changing the political landscape. But men will not give up their positions easily. And,
in the in the development science, we have, when the society was formed, the agriculture system was even formed by the women only. The stability and the social system was formed by the women only. So the feminine energy, the feminines have that innovation, because in Indian society also, it's a Shiv Parvati thing, and we say that which is tangible is a male.
Yeah.
And which is intangible is a female, and intellect is intangible, and that is feminine energy, and the female women hold it well.
Yeah.
Hold it well. And
what is interesting, Himaanshu, is yesterday at our meeting, there was half a dozen or a dozen men as well. And I think when they're in meetings with women, some of the feminine in a man comes out. So it's much more trying to bring out a kind of feminine perspective.
wow.
In all of us, to build a better society. And as you know, women, men, they often say in the peace field, men start wars and women are peacemakers. Just naturally, women they're most affected, critically affected by war. They want peace, and they're peacemakers. And they are tendency in our society to be more collective and to bring a collective leadership model, not a single vertical model around a male figure. So these are the things that if India opens itself to, with so many brilliant women and forces coming up right now, I think we could really be a model for many other countries. And that is when we work with women, that's always what we focus our long-term attention on, is how to make those profound changes so that we have a much more nurturing, loving society around us.
Yeah, that is the space we actually want to be in now. As a global citizen also, everyone is seeking for that thing. And one last thing that I will, what I have experienced since in my journey of mental healing, I have all the colleagues from the entire state, and I talked to the different women. I found that the women in Chhattisgarh, especially in Chhattisgarh, are more empowered. They have a right to say, they have a space to talk, they have a space in dining room, they have a space in discussion room, everywhere. And in my family, with my parents also, with my in-laws' parents also, I've seen that the woman has that authority and power. And until and unless the woman will not have the economic authority, we can't see the development actually we want to see.
Exactly. That's very true. So one of the big programs we work on, which we talked about yesterday, is land rights, where woman has her name on the title of land.
Wow.
Because if a woman grows up and gets married and goes into her in-laws' home, very often she feels quite powerless and insecure. And having her name on a title gives her, because even though she may inherit parental property, you know, in our customs, women generally don't go back and take parental property. That's given to the brothers, generally speaking, or other.
It is always gender bias. In many of the countries it is there.
And it's also, but also in India, even though we have equal rights under Hindu law, as you know, personal law is segregated. We have excellent law that gives equal rights of parental property. But when a woman moves into her sasural, she takes on the husband's mantle. And she is seen to be attached to the husband, but suppose the husband and wife don't have a perfect relationship. And suppose she has to navigate and negotiate a relationship, which is common in today's world, that women are not just sitting submissively to their husbands. In that case, when she has a title over her property, she feels more empowered. And so we're working on that in the rural areas, that women have joint title. And I think we're really seeing, even though it's only about 12% of women that have joint title across India, wherever it is, it does provide women a much stronger sense of security and dignity in the home. And that doesn't have to compromise the love. It's just practical, you know, that relationships change and mutate and over time, and it just gives her, especially with the family, a sense that she's always in the family. She has a claim or stake in the family, and she has that economic independence. And going out into the workforce, she has more confidence, you know, that I'm someone, you know, I'm someone and I'm some person, and I have a sense of my own self. And we're seeing more and more, especially with those Adivasi young women I was talking about, tremendous change that is going on in terms of women joining the workforce. Chhattisgarh traditionally has 35% Adivasi population. Of course, it's a lot of influx from people from all surrounding and other states, and they do bring their own gender biases with them. And I think sometimes we see that in middle-class homes, women are very much in purdah, very much in the home, whereas the poor or Adivasi women, they're in the markets, they're in the fields, they're moving around, they're not in purdah, and so it's really they're setting that feminine principle that we were talking about in terms of gaining some visibility. And so let's build on it. Let's all come around and celebrate this on International Women's Day.
A slogan from Chhattisgarh that after 2000, when the Chhattisgarh was formed, we always say, Chhattisgarhia sab le badhiya.
Yeah.
And we want that you also say that. Chhattisgarhia sab le badhiya.
Badhiya. Okay. Chhattisgarhia sab le badhiya. Yeah. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was deep. It was very deep conversation, and it was very nice talking to you.
Thank you so
much. And I'm feeling gratitude to be with you at this moment, and talking all those things. Yeah. And you have put a different roadmap for the success now. It's a non-violence economy.
Yeah.
And I will request all of you to go through all those things, because all the links, whatever the ma'am has talked about, Jill has talked about, we'll put on the description box.
Yeah.
Each websites, each courses, each wisdom will be there.
Yeah.
And I will request all the viewers to please go through it.
Thank you.
Thank you.